I'm Gabrielle Newcomb, and today
I'm touring the Bulge House, which is one of 6 buildings that were moved to the Eastwood property.
this building originally was built in 1733. It was a 1.5 story with 1 to possibly 2 bedrooms. It had no bathroom. An addition was added in 1780 that doubled the footprint and added 2 bedrooms upstairs. In 2008, a basement was added. This had full amenities, so it had a full working kitchen and a bathroom, and all of this was added to the basement to preserve the history of the first 2 levels. This house has been restored by the Foster Built Company, which I had the pleasure of interviewing today during this tour.
So we're standing in the original 1733 structure, which would have been what we would call a 2/2. You had a room here, a room to my right, and a center foyer with a staircase going upstairs to 2 rooms in the attic, if you will. So it was a single story with, or a story and a half is what it is.
This is where the original 1733 space began. On the left you can see a bathroom, and on the right you can see a wall that was added to create the office. These were done by the Foster Built Company. The bathroom is where the adjacent room connected to this living space originally. The staircase in this space was originally reflected on the other side, so when you walked into the original front door, to the right was the staircase.
But yes, this is all the front of the original part, 1733, part of the house, front door here, and the rear door would have been just back here behind us. Light was a huge issue in that time period, so the orientation of your house would have been dictated not necessarily by road or visual appeal, but would have been based on how the sunlight would come through, but also your doors would be able to open for breeze, so you would orientate so you had west, east, or possibly a little skewed of that. Originally, it was over on Lonesome Road in Prince William County. So from here, about 10 miles, and it was slated for demolition because of a new housing development. And Dad had known about this house for decades.
Since I was 16.
Right. And so he kept in the loop, and then we got in contact with somebody because we knew it was getting demoed, and we were able to go in and buy salvage rights. We've been blessed with this clientele here that owns this currently, that loves history, and then contacted her, and she funded the project.
How long did it take you guys to take it apart and put it back together?
Well, the people that had it, that already had the demo permit for it, only gave us 30 days, which is
Very much.
near enough
Right.
time. Fortunately, there was some asbestos on the kitchen floor that kind of held things up, that allowed us to document, take doors out, and get things ready to go. But it really pushed us. Typically, you would want close to 3 months to document, photograph, and take a house like this apart. It has the original H&L hinges were still on the doors, and the rim locks, people steal those. We're fortunate that none of that had gotten taken from here.
And in 1780, they added the back and expanded the current footprint by double. And so that is through here. This was the original exterior wall of the house here, and then here's where we jump in. Now, when we go to the basement, you'll see different beam techniques on the saw marks and the hewing marks, axe marks, things like that. You'll visibly be able to see the difference between the old one and this one here.
So this corner cupboard is pretty special in a few regards. The interior has this Chippendale style shelving, and something that was pretty unique and pretty interesting was that we invited the Smithsonian to look at this piece as a piece of furniture, and there's 3 different style shelves: a hard shelf, a concave and then a convex. And in the Chippendale style, a lot of times in furniture and in some of these built-ins, you'll see one or two of these different patterns, but never all three.
The heart-shaped shelves were really uncommon to find. However, the concave and convex were normally seen in shelving like this repeated due to the use of candles to light up the cabinetry. A candle would be placed on a concave shelf followed up by a convex shelf because it had a cutout for the smoke to leave the shelf. However, you can see here that there's a black circle which would have been created by placing a candle on the cabinet below it.
It was the first time we had ever come across all three. And then when the Smithsonian looked at it, that's what grabbed their attention. And they said, whoa, this is unique. Very, we've never seen this. And so we were trying to get a value on this piece alone to somewhat help justify the cost of the reclamation and rebuilding of this structure. And without a super deep dive that would actually cost us money with the Smithsonian, they gave us an approximate to insure it at $100,000 because of the uniqueness and a period 1780 piece.
Though the fireplace was here originally, this style was added to mimic the original cabinet to provide some symmetry for the space. Although these windows are replaced, it is still period accurate with a 6/9.
These are reproduction rim locks. We do have an original up front, but this is a reproduction. This is the style for the day.
These lights were originally at the State Department.
But in the 1733 part of the house, we had oak flooring that was not tongue and grooved. It was just butted up together. And at the hearth, the flooring was about that thick because of you're always staying warm. Yeah. Your center of life, especially in the colder months, was centered around that. Not having vacuum cleaners, you got grit on the floor at all times, and so that had worn down away from there. It was 1.25 inches thick, but at that point we were down to 1/4 inch left of material. Other thing I can show you is on a staircase. Originally in the other room at the front door, you would have come up to the staircase from that side. So in an addition that we did after reconstructing this is put this wall in, put the staircase on this side so you can see that we've got new heart pine treads here, but this is the original staircase here. So if you look at your treads, the thickness of your treads at the outside walls, you can see they're thicker, and in the middle they're worn and they're a little bit thinner. And that came from, again, grit and using it for 200 and some years. You actually have wear that's visible. So as you come by, you may see this. This board here, this whole wall, is the same board that's over here. So we have a single thickness, about a 1 inch thick wall for all of this upstairs area. And that would have been to save money and still divide the rooms and give some privacy, but very minimal expense on all of that. So you can see how we try to hide things. This floor here is oak, and you can see your beams, the original rafter beams here. And what we did with this knee wall, the knee wall was here when we found it, and but we elected to run wiring and ductwork back there and hide as much of this stuff as we could. But that's the original floor in the unfinished state. That's kind of like we found it when we come into these old structures. It's very rough. But like I was saying, downstairs, there was no tongue and groove. It's just a square-edged board butted up against each other. That's what we had downstairs originally. Very drafty if you think about your crawl spaces. Think about all that cold air that would have come up through here. What we see a lot of times is 1,000,000 tacks where they would actually put burlap down on the floor to make an insulation. In the 1780 change, you had 4 rooms up here. Come upstairs on the current staircase in that location where it is, and you had 2 rooms to the left and you had 2 rooms to the right. We made a change and made this into 1. when we rebuilt it. So you had one larger bedroom. We also knew that there was the possibility in the future to, you just kind of have to think ahead or guess what somebody may do with the structure. And so as we were coming up through the walls down below, we went ahead and ran our waste pipes, we ran 2 supply lines, and then a couple electrical circuits, and left them in the wall right under your feet, so that if somebody ever said, I want a bathroom upstairs, and just so happens now that you're here, that's exactly what we're doing almost 15 years later, and we knew right where everything was, and we're able to, again, segment this bedroom off. So you have a small bedroom now, but you have a full bath upstairs, and you do not have to go all the way to the basement, which we'll see later where all the amenities are from the original reconstruction.
Entrance to the cellar, what would have been a cellar, not a basement, you know, real low ceiling.
Again, since this was a cellar, and the dirt floor and various parts of this basement were sometimes up into this level, down into a little bit deeper section in certain areas. So from another historic site, we have taken this, what we call Manassas red sandstone, and elected to face the walls here with this. And this came from Robert Portner's estate, which was more of a castle, and had a few really cool hand-carved pieces. We were able to incorporate. This originally was a cellar, so you already kind of have the idea that it wasn't ever a finished space. However, if we're in a historical structure and we are wondering what got changed or whatever may have been there before or not, one telltale sign that you can find is if we're looking at the bottom of all of these beams, there are no nail holes. If this was ever finished with plaster, obviously you would have a whole bunch of nails. A lot of times the nails would still be in there. A lot of times if there are nails in there, we will pull those out and start looking at them very closely to get a time frame of when that was done, and see if that lines up with the original part of the house, or do we know that maybe 50 years later they came in and plastered a ceiling. Down here we have no nails, so that we know this was never ever a finished space. So a unique thing that we see and nobody else ever sees, but the guys constructing or deconstructing get to see some of these joinery techniques. Your main carrying beam, or your summer beam is sometimes what it's called, the floor joists that are resting on it are half lapped and then pegged to hold it in place. But every 2 or 3, as we go down the line here, had a dovetail joint that was let in, and on the dovetail, as it's let in like this, if the building tries to spread one way or the other, that dovetail kind of stops that from happening, as opposed to just a squared notch for that joist to sit in. So that was a real unique kind of special joinery technique, but also kept the building from spreading.
The house is known as the Balch House, which got its name from Reverend Thomas Bloomer Balch, who was a Presbyterian minister. Noah Webster, Webster's Dictionary, knew this minister and made the statement, he is one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. He went to the First Battle of Manassas, he went to the Battle of Bristow, and brought wounded soldiers back to this house to take care of them. And he speaks of how many he lost. It was 1863, Colonel Mosby of the Mosby Rangers, he wrote in his diary, having breakfast at Greenwich and moving a couple miles south towards Catlett, bivouacked for the night. On the same night, we have Balch writing, got an unsuspected visit from the celebrated Mosby tonight. What happened, Mosby lost his way. He got off on the wrong road. He was heading for Catlett, and he ended up making it to Catlett and blowing up that steam train. That's another story. So we have a mention of Mosby here. It's a shame it had to be uprooted from its original place, but at least we had someone willing to save it.